All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Traders Talk podcast, where we sit down with some of the best traders, funded traders in the game, so we can hear their story, hear their struggle, and kind of use that, man. Today I got a really special guest, Omar. His YouTube channel is called Train and Trade. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen him around. If you're on Twitter, you've probably seen him around. He just posted a video a couple of days, a week or a few weeks ago, I think. And you made, I think, $46,000 so far with just FTMO, correct?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Cool, awesome. So Omar's a trader from New York, and we're just gonna ask him a bunch of questions, man. Bug him today, see how he's doing some of this stuff. So how you doing, Omar? You good?
Yeah, man. I'm good. Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it. I'm a big fan. I already told you before we started recording that I'm like a big fan of the channel. I've been following you for a little while after that FTMO interview, and I really like the whole podcast. So when you actually asked me to be on, I was actually, very, very privileged and thankful. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Cool. So like the first question I always ask, because I find it real interesting. What was life like for you? Like, what were you doing before you? First of all, how long have you been trading for? But what were you doing before trading? How did you even find out about it? Like, what was your plan before for life?
Yeah, so I actually found out about trading sometime in 2017, like end of 2016 towards 2017. I was still in college at the time. My roommate at the time was actually he's the one who introduced me to trading. He wasn't really trading, he was kind of on and off with it. But I remember I was kind of flip-flopping in college, like through my different majors. I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. I thought I wanted to be, a sports management. I just kept going back and forth. Health. I did so many different majors, man, and I realized, like, you know what, maybe like college wasn't for me. Just because I just didn't see myself being in some sort of like corporate world where I'm just kind of like, moving up the rankings, limited salary. So then I started looking into like entrepreneurship, different ways to make money, came across e-commerce, came across trading. And this was back again, 2016, 2017. And yeah, that's kind of where my journey started. And to be honest, at the time, I wasn't really doing much, still in school. And when I ended up dropping out, because I was like in upstate New York in school, I came back to New York City. And from New York City, pretty much just was working. I remember I was working at a hookah lounge for like a couple months while I was like, just learning how to trade. I was also learning e-commerce on the side because I wasn't sure which path I was going to take. But after a while, I kind of noticed, like, you know what, trading is probably going to be it because I like the whole concept of it where it's just you and the markets. You're not worried about, other customers. You're not worried about like, fulfilling orders and all this other thing. So yeah, man. Then I just kind of went with trading full on. I started actually with equities and moved into forex in 2018, and that's like where my forex journey actually began.
Okay, cool. Yeah, man, that's pretty much typically how it goes. Now,
Yeah.
when you kind of got like first found out to the point where you kind of somewhat became consistent, what was your learn? Like, where did you learn from? Did you buy a course? Did you just hit up YouTube? Was there somebody teaching you? Like, what was that? What was that like?
Yeah, so I'm very open about it too. Like I've bought multiple courses. I've learned from multiple people. The first person I learned, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Steve Morrow.
I've heard
If
of him. Yeah,
Yeah, he's like the
I've
guy
heard
with
of
the
him.
buy the market, something with the market makers series. Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. But
yeah.
yeah, that was the first course I was actually exposed to when I came into trading in 2018, right? So I actually came into trading in 2018 in July. So next month is gonna be like the full 4 years that I was involved with Forex. I when
Okay.
I came in, one of my friends, he's the one who introduced me to forex specifically because he told me like, with the leverage, you don't have to,
Yeah.
you're not restricted like you are with equities and stocks. So he told me like, hey man, maybe you should just hop in, try to give this forex thing a try. So that's what I did, and fortunately, like he put me in a group chat with a bunch of his friends, and dude, they had like so many different courses that they had already purchased. And a lot of them
Okay.
were like pretty kind enough to just kind of share it. So Steve Morrow's course was the first one that I studied, and yeah, man, he was the one. But the biggest like influence for me was ICT. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
of course.
yeah, yeah. So because after I did Steve Morrow's course, I found a little bit of consistency with one of his divergence strategies, and then I kind of realized like because he preaches the market just moves in threes, and when you look at a chart, like the market, clearly doesn't just move up 3 days, down 3 days, or like or variations of it. So and then people told me like, oh yeah, Steve Morrow, he was the one. Yeah, he stole a lot of not stole, but he regurgitated a lot of ICT's concepts to come up with his own thing. So I'm like, all right, well, I want to learn from the actual source, and that's when I stumbled upon ICT. a few months after that, and then joined his mentorship program.
Okay, cool. So, now there's always that period of struggle, right? I guess whenever you started 2017, from then to like when you had your first consistent month, how long do you think that took you? Because everybody takes different times. Like for me, it was like 2 years. I know somebody it was 4 years. Like, do you think you
Yeah.
have a time for that?
It's so difficult, man, to be honest, because I was the trader who would always be making money, and I would always approach trading in the sense of like kind of trying to flip accounts. So
Yeah.
2018 for sure was, yeah. So 2018 was for sure like a losing year. 2019 was like on and off because then I started just trading like one specific setup that I learned using like ICT's concepts. It was like pretty much a quick liquidity rate strategy. Found some consistency with that in 2019. But the problem would be like, kind of like pushing too much size, making money, taking out withdrawal, and then losing it. So I went through that seesaw thing the whole 2019. So 2019 was probably either maybe slightly positive, maybe break even, slightly negative. Because I wasn't the person who just had one account to try to build it. I was the person
Yeah.
like, throwing $1,000 into account, $500 into account, because I know I was still learning too. So I didn't want to
Yeah.
like put in too much money. And yeah, man, just try to flip it, go from $500 to a couple thousand, take some out, then blow it, and then just repeat the process the whole time. That was majority of 2019. And then I would say consistency probably came towards mid 2020 into and 2021. I know for sure that was like the most consistent year I've had up until now. And yeah, and to be honest, the only different thing that happened was just I kind of took it a little bit more seriously as the years went on because as like going into year two, going into year three, you're like, all right, you know what, maybe I should start to focus a little bit. And if I want to take this serious, I can't just be flipping accounts 24/7. And again, funded programs weren't around when when that whole process was going on. So I think funding programs had a big influence, specifically this year, for me and my trading.
Right. I think one of the points you touched on is like becoming serious. Like so during that time when you're struggling, a lot of people are struggling right now because I get you get messages and you have
Yeah, oh
students.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But some people give up, right? It's like because when you're in that losing stage or when you're losing a bunch of money, the good thing you did is you didn't put in too much money during the learning process. Because what I
Exactly.
found out, people burn out either emotionally or financially. If one of those things happen, you're gonna give up. I had a friend my friend who introduced me to forex in 2016. He gave up. He's like, I can't do this anymore.
Damn.
So, and it's because he burned himself out. Like he just kept throwing money and losing, throwing money and losing. So, what kind of what was your reasoning? Like, yo, I'm not going back to college. I don't want to do anything else. Like that's for me. It was. I was like, I don't want to work this job anymore, bro. It's not happening. So, like, what kind of pushed you
Exactly.
through that period? Was it just kind of like motivation for yourself?
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that because I'm kind of the same way. What it was about, it's also two things. So one, it was I did not want to work because this is the thing. I knew like I feel like as a trader, right? If you have somewhat of skill and whether or not it's just the execution part for trading. And I know one of my mentors, his name is Tom Dante. He talked about that as well before in a little bit of a lecture. That like if you were someone who didn't know where the market was going, it would be very
Yeah,
demoralizing because you don't know where it's going and you're losing money. But for me,
yeah,
I always had a decent skill set of like, all right, the market should be going here, or the market I think is going to go here, and it would happen, right? But the problem was my execution would be terrible. So it always kept me in the game because I realized like, all right, dude, just like focus in. That's something that you can change. Like the skill set is there. You just have to execute better, which is something that can be fixed. And not saying that if you don't have skill, it can't be fixed because obviously everyone can learn. But I do think some people are a little bit more skilled than others. And yeah, dude, it was just I did not want to work a job because I told myself like, all right, an average paying job, right? Let's say is like 50, 60K, whatever it is. To make that in trading is not that difficult for the year.
no,
I mean, I understand that people can be like, oh yeah, you get taxed a lot more. Yeah, but again, you can expense a lot of things
yep,
if you do it properly, where you're not going to be taxed on the full amount you make, and you can actually pay for your rent. And that's just going a whole different rabbit hole. But again, making 50, 60K for the year for trading is not that difficult, especially now with these funding companies. So in my mind,
yeah,
I'm always like, all right, dude, let me just stick with this because I do have a passion and skill for it, and I don't want to go back to a job. And I mean, I was working at a job at that time as well, but So obviously to like, pay to have money saved up to have money for bills. But again, I always saw the end goal was like I'm not gonna spend the next 10 plus years working at a job when at the very least you can trade with like a minimal capital, especially with the leverage in forex, and make whatever you need. Yeah, it just didn't make sense for me to work 40 hours a week making something I could probably make in one trade. It just did not make any sense.
Yeah, man. I was actually working for a big company out of the U.S., like a Fortune 1000 company, and I mean, I wasn't making that much money. I was making something, but I had a couple of months where I was making more money in 2 3 days of trading than I did all weekend. I'm like, yo, what is the point of sitting here spending, whatever 40 hours a week working, going through these bullshit meetings? I can't even take a day off. And then that's when I just kind of took it seriously. I was like, I have to treat this like a business and get super serious about this. So you got a bunch of payouts from FTMO. How's your experience been with like with these funding companies?
Oh man, it's a game changer. It's funny because if you asked me last year, I was kind of against funding companies. Not against, but I always thought they were a little bit shady because I always thought that there was a conflict of interest, right? Because if they paid people out based off of, let's say, the amount of people who lose, right? So like the more people that lose and the more challenge fees they collect, then they kind of expense that and pay the winners, right? I'm not
Yes.
sure if that's the only way they get paid. I've heard that they get paid a different way where they sell traders data. Again, I'm not sure, so I don't want people to quote me on that.
Yeah.
But regardless, that was kind of the stigma last year. And if you're familiar with that one company that kind of just
Funding
like
talent.
funding talent, yeah, I actually had an account with them. I
At
remember I
three.
had an account. Yeah, dude. And like the worst part is that was like because I had a FTMO last year, but then again it was kind of just like on and off, and then I blew it, and then I was like, you know what, let me try funding talent. They don't have any minimum days, and I got the
Yes.
account fairly quickly within a week because phase one passed it, just over leverage, got the account. Then phase two over leverage, got the account, and within a week or so. And then as I was working on that account, the account was a 100K account, got up to like about $3,000 within the first few days. Then that whole situation and debacle happened with them. They didn't want to pay out anyone unless you had $5,000 profit. I'm like, dude, I just started the account.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was just, yeah, man, it was just like the whole fiasco was just a major, major turnoff. And then I kind of just traded my own capital for the remainder of the year at that point because I'm like, like what's stopping from any other funding company to do this? But I mean, I will say this
True.
now that there's so many that are coming out, I feel like due to the competition, they all have to step up their game. So, and
Agree.
I haven't had any problems with FTMO or the funded trader that I have an account with. My forex fund, I just got an account with them recently too. I mean, everyone that I know that has an account with them didn't have any issues. So, I mean, yeah, man, I'm very, very bullish on funding programs, especially this year.
Yeah, no, I really I mean, of course I love FTMO. There's no issues there. My forex funds has been pretty good to me, so I'm down with that. Now, do you kind of have, so first of all, the other question I wanted to ask, how much are you risking on these on the, I know on personal it's okay to risk 1%, but funding accounts, okay, really you only have 10% to lose technically,
Exactly.
right? So
Yeah,
if you risk 1%, you're really risking like 10%. So
exactly.
how much do you risk on a funded account?
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up because I was just talking about this on Twitter. Because so I had a 300K FTMO account from February up until May, and that's where like the $46,000 profits came from within that time
Yeah.
span. And the thing is, after that, after I got like another funding program with my not my forex fund, the funded trader, right? I had a 200K account with them, so I had 500K worth of equity total between the two. So I'm thinking like, all right, I'm just gonna start pushing a little bit more size. But now I kind of realize like what you said, you only have really you can't go below minus 10 negative trades if you risk 1%, right? Again, it varies with everybody because some people, let's say you're someone who's a scalper, you go for one-to-ones, but you have like a 90% win rate, you have an
Yeah.
80% win rate. You have the luxury to do 1% per trade because at the end of the day, you're not losing that much, and 1% you're only going to make 1% regardless. So the statistics for that make sense. So everyone, it's going to vary in my opinion, because if I do 1%, right, but my win rate is, let's say, 50, 60%, and my average risk reward is 2 to 3%, it could make sense. But if you go through any form of drawdown, psychologically, it can affect you. Also, another question is, how many trades are you taking per day? Are you going to take 1%, which is really, like you said, 10%? So if
Yeah.
am I going to keep taking 10% on this trade? Okay, that's an L. Take another 10%. Okay, that's an L. Now I'm just down 20%. And people don't think of it like, yeah, if you just keep taking the same risk, it's going to play out over time, right? But the problem is the psychology and the mental capital that you have to deal with looking at the drawdown, knowing like, damn, I just lost 20% of my funded account. So now I'm focused on like the more like 0.5% of the total account, which is 5%. So if it's a 100K account, only risking like $500 to 700. And then as you build up equity, then you can start to risk 1% or more. That's kind of how I'm going to go about it this time around, because I just don't want to go through any like, psychological torture of like, oh, damn, I'm down 20%, because people say you're down 2%, but you're really not.
It hurts, and the trap is that when the people that don't know, or it's their first time getting funded, is they say, okay, I passed the challenge, I passed phase 2. That means I can always do this every month. I'm gonna make 10%. That's usually not what's gonna happen. I typically aim for 5-6%, and then I just stop trading the account. Because if you try to get too greedy with this, you end up losing it. Like last summer, I had 700,000 with my forex fund and FTMO, and I lost it all in 1 month because I just got greedy, and I had one bad month, and you're done with 1%. So do you have anything in place if you have a losing week, like a bad day or bad few days? Do you have anything that you do, like you stop trading or you lower your, like, do you have anything in place for that?
Yeah, so I'm very, very strict on this. And this is also why I'm kind of like against sometimes signal chats, because every trader at some point is going to go through some sort of losing streak, or some
Yeah.
type of like
New visitor.
or some type of like psychological, like something psychologically that's going to impair them in real life, right? Because life goes on. Doesn't care if you're a trader, doesn't care if you have to perform, life is going to go on.
Yeah.
And the reality is this: everyone's going to go through some losing streaks. So the way I view it is like this: if I'm on like, let's say if I lost, 2 days in a row, depending on how I feel on that third day and how the market is kind of participating, is going to depend on what I'm going to trade that day. So if mentally I feel like distraught and I feel stressed, I'm going to take the day off no matter how great the market is. Because I mean, dude, no matter how great the volatility is, no matter how great the opportunity set is, if you're mentally not focused, you're not going to execute well anyways, so you might as well just take the day off. But if I feel like, okay, I lost 2 days in a row, but I followed my game plan, and mentally I'm fine, right? Like mentally, I'm not deterred, I'm not upset. I feel like, okay, mentally I'm still there and the market is still providing me an opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and trade. And yeah, that's kind of how I go about it. It's all dependent on how I feel, because if I feel like shit and I feel like, oh my God, like I just feel on edge, then that's not the best way to approach the market, because you're most likely going to lose anyways.
Yeah. Especially if you're confident in the shot. I just feel like when I'm more confident, it's just everything plays out much better.
Exactly.
So Omar, let's talk. I think you're working on like, if people want to learn from you, how can they do that? I think you're about to release something. What can you just fill us in on that?
Yeah, so I have my Train and Trade Academy that's actually coming out on the 24th, which is going to be this Friday. And
Okay.
yeah, man, it's just going to be composed of everything, that all the foundations of the stuff that I use to trade is going to include all my trading setups. It's going to include the psychology and risk management and actual practical psychology tips that people can utilize, right? Not just the old saying like, oh yeah, be confident, like actual practical ways I've learned from like other psychologists. And yeah, and I'm actually making a specific section on how to approach funding, how I got funded, and how I approach challenges. There's going to be a specific section just for that, because again, I'm a huge fan of like funding programs personally. Just because, like, dude, we talked about this, like, you are not risking your own capital. That's the beautiful thing about it. As soon as you get the account and you get your first withdrawal, that account is 100% risk free, and you can keep renting that account multiple times. You can get multiple. Dude, I've met someone on Twitter actually who has like almost $2 million worth of funding program accounts, and he's doing really, really well for himself. And he's not pushing for the fences. He's allowing the extra equity to kind of give him more profit. So yeah, I'm just a big fan of that. So I actually have a section teaching people how to, like, the proper ways to approach the challenges, proper ways to approach once you actually get funded. And yeah, and also, like, giving people strategies that I've used throughout the years, and specifically the ones that I use around, like, getting funded and all that stuff. So that's coming out this Friday. It's going to be on a sale so it's going to be on a sale $147 for the whole day. Then it's going to be $397 going into, like, after that, because The academy also comes with like Zoom links, weekly Zoom links, and then bi-weekly Zoom links for Q&As. So that's all lifetime access. So once you join, you're going to have like 100% access to all the Zoom meetings that we're going to do every single week. And then the bi-weekly ones, which are going to be on Saturday, where me and all the people who join, we can go ahead and communicate and talk about, if they have any questions regarding the content, that's going to be their opportunity to, ask me and get their questions answered.
Cool. So what I'll do, guys, I'll leave Omar's Academy's link and his YouTube and his Instagram in the description below. So if you want to, get in touch with him or check that out, please do. All right. Last question to wrap it up. What advice would you give to somebody who's either break even, not profitable, or struggling? Like what is something that they can do to like fix that or to improve that?
Yeah. So I actually answered this question recently with someone. The thing is, you have to be honest with yourself, right? You have to know, is the issue coming from psychological stuff, right? Like you just can't execute, you don't have confidence, or whatever it is, or is the issue a technical thing where like you're just not as good as you think you are, right? Because so many people put emphasis on the psychological part, which is a huge. I'm not discounting that at all. But the reality is this: a lot of traders just aren't that good, and I see it all the time where some traders are calling moves or calling specific trades. And I'm looking at the trade. And again, like I'm not like a know-it-all or anything like that, but I can tell just based off like the structure, based off multiple things, like, dude, this is a very low probability trade. But people, they just think it's their psychology that's holding them back. So you have to be honest with yourself. If it's the psychology holding you back, dude, just invest in some time into like, going on YouTube, looking up people like Brett Steenbarger. He's like a huge role model for me when it comes to like the practical solutions for psychology. Also, Jared Tendler is a good one for psychology. And if it's technical, just go through different mentors and learn different skill sets, right? Learn different strategies, learn different things, and then find something that really resonates with you and just go 100% in it. So I would tell those people, first of all, find out what it is, technical or psychological. That's the issue with you. Be honest. Don't have any ego attached to it. And if it's technical, keep learning, keep trying to learn from other people, implement it yourself, journal every single day. And if it's psychological, just take practical ways to improve your mental. So yeah, man, I think that's just like the best sound solution for anyone who's struggling right now.
All right, sick advice. Thank you, Omar, for coming on the podcast today, man. Okay, guys, I'm gonna leave all his links in the description below. Please check them out.